is your reality. You're not imagining it. You're not imagining that you're poor. You're not imagining that you're left out because you live in a third world country. You're not imagining that you're not getting the right quality of education to make you globally competitive. You're not imagining that. That's real, right? Okay, but now that you've got it, you can live in the emotion, and sometimes I do. I get really, really mad and really, really upset. But then the following morning comes and you realize that you've moved not an inch of distance, yet you've expanded all of this time and this emotion. I mean, right now, if you think about the world we live in, just think about how much hatred there is. Think about how much anger there is. And yet we're not moving. So what really pulls me out of it, and it's an honest conversation with me, is I go, do you want the emotion or do you want progress? Because you can't have both.
Oh,
right?
Go deeper on that. Right? That's crazy.
So,
you just gave me the chills.
I'll give you an example. You're at the gym, right? You're curling. You're rep 8, and your body starts to fire off those signals in your brain, and it goes, stop. It hurts. If you stop, you get the emotion. You don't get the progress. So if you talk to any decent athlete, they'll tell you that where the pain starts is when the work starts, right? Talk to any decent entrepreneur that's built a large-scale business. They'll tell you the they had to go through. So you either get the emotion or you get the progress, but you can't have both, right? We're living in this world today where everybody is just so deeply embedded in the emotion. I want to be angry at Tom because he's X, Y, and Z, and I want to be angry at Vusi because, yet you make no progress.
I say this to every person I meet, which is public speaking is a skill, it's a tool. And it is, in my view, the single most important skill of any person who sees themselves as a leader in the new age. The ability to communicate, or the lack of it, often determines the extent to which you will succeed in life. So when you're going into an interview, it's about whether or not you can sell yourself.
Persuasion.
Exactly. And so your ability to communicate, to speak in public, as a result of it, often will determine how society perceives you and how successful you'll become at whatever pursuit you do.
Relationships.
When we do, and I do a fair amount of sales training with my own team here, but I often talk about, we don't close here. So we don't close a sale, we open a relationship. So the way we lead the sales process is the whole time we're having a conversation with you to give you a sense of why you would benefit by having a relationship with us. This has nothing to do with whether or not you buy from us. This is just like, we want to have a relationship with you. And we have that relationship by offering these products, which we believe suit this need of yours. And by the way, it's connected to the things you find important. If these are the things you find important, because we do, then we should sustain this relationship for a period of time. And we do that by having you sign this contract. So we really, and I've taken a lot of time I've spent a lot of time with my sales team going, don't close a sale. People should never feel like you've closed anything. They should rather feel like they've become part of something, part of a family, part of a movement, part of something that matters, something that's going to make a difference, right? Especially today's world with millennials, who don't buy stuff based on value. They buy stuff based on values. So what you really want to make sure is that you open the sale. I think public speaking taught me that kind of instinctively, because in public speaking, what you're doing is you're communicating a very complex set of ideas as simply as possible. And you're doing it in the hope that that it's going to inspire action. So, when Martin Luther King said, I have a dream that one day the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to break bread on the table of brotherhood. The first thing he did is he used imagery, because the minute the mind can see it, then you're closer to doing it, right? But the second thing he does is says, I have a dream. Towards the end of the speech, if you listen to it, he says, we need a messaging to the United States that says that you guys have issued us this check for the promises you've made, but this check has returned saying no money in the bank account. So he says, even though I have this dream, if the system or the situation doesn't allow for this dream to be actualized, it's not going to be actualized. And that works. That's really, really an effective way of doing it. So I would say to anybody who's in a sales process, particularly people who are entrepreneurs, because if you're an entrepreneur, you're selling every day, is you don't close a sale, you open a relationship. And you open a relationship in the same way you would when you want to date someone, by going, I like you, I think we have a bit of chemistry, I think this thing could go somewhere, but I think, so what do you say about a date? Then at the end of the first date, you go, what do you say about a second one? Right? That's kind of, in our firm, that's kind of how we think about building relationships with clients. It's just, you see the world in this way, we see the world in this way. What do you say we go on a date? let's try something together. And that opening of relationships is far more sustainable because, by the way, just one final thing. Every time you close a sale, notice what you have to do is you have to make a hard promise. You never close a sale without making a hard promise. Mm-hmm. So before you close a sale, you go through the promising stage where you go, I promise my product or my business is going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you open a relationship, you don't really make a promise. You make a commitment. You kind of go, I commit that I'm going to be available, that I'm going to do the best I can, that I'm going to make sure that I'm going to do the best I can to make sure that we succeed. But a commitment is different because a promise is final. A commitment allows for latitude. So in a commitment where you fail, you can be honest and go, I thought it would, but it didn't work, or there's a problem here, or it's a mechanical issue. And because you've opened a relationship, people are a lot more forgiving than if you made very hard promises trying to close a sale. And now this thing doesn't do what you said it would do 6 months in.
I say this to my team all the time, which is, even in the construct of brands, we must always recognize that we will never be the equal of the brand. And this is what many people who build brands get wrong. So particularly people who do personal branding. So they go, well, I'm a great X, I'm a great comedian, a great singer, a great actress, a great whatever. So you become this brand thing, but you forget that a brand is something that lives in people's mind, which is to say your existence becomes a manifestation of somebody else's expectation. Now, most people are bad at the expectation part. So they think you're still in charge. You're not in charge anymore. This thing called a brand now outlives you. It's a bit like building a Lego set. You just built the pieces. What people will do with this Lego set is up to you. And that's kind of how I think about my life.
That is such a hard truth.
It is, right?
It is such a hard truth.
And by the way, the most powerful brands are the ones that the people who construct don't own. When you cease ownership, that's when you've built a brand.
Tasha's.
Exactly, because it means that there's somebody on the other end who's gone, this thing is so powerful, not only do I want to be a part of it, I want to help build it. That's hard. I imagine you're a lot like me. What are we doing now? So,
2 core principles, right? The first is that everything everyone knows, they learned. And I don't accept that I'm less intelligent than the next person, which means I can learn it too, right? The second is that every single excuse I have is valid, but that's still not going to give me the results that I want. And so we do live in this really PC culture today, where people are looking for the excuse. And the truth is, the excuse is completely valid. Yes, you are a young black person growing up in democratic South Africa for the past 26 years, but for hundreds of years before that, it wasn't built for you to succeed. Right? Yes, you're living in one of the most difficult credit capital markets in the world, so it's hard to get access to funding to start a business. Yeah, all of that stuff's true, but that's still not going to change your circumstance. So the test is not whether or not you know the reasons for not succeeding. The test is whether or not you're willing to do whatever it takes to get to that next level. And a big part of the whatever it takes actually is just remain teachable. Just be a student of the game, a student of life, a student of those who've achieved. And I've found that those 2 things have really stood me in good stead.
Rule number 6.
You know, the idea that you've got to do your kata over and over and over and over and over, same movement, same rotation. Even today as an entrepreneur, when you build a business, you've got to do the simple things over and over and over. And it is in the application it is in the iteration and application that excellence is achieved. And I think that's what people don't understand. So people go, so how do you get to number 1 of the thing? You actually just have to do the simple things, but do them every day religiously and each time with a consistent discipline. That's the mark. That's how you get there.
Us make when we're trying to close a sale is we act like salespeople, right? So you know, there's something counterintuitive about sales training, which is you learn everything you learn in sales so that you can do it instinctively and intuitively rather than do it off a script. So if you come across to a client as if you're doing something for a script, they immediately feel as if being sold to. And just like you do when you're watching a TV ad, you get up and go make popcorn. Because nobody wants to be sold to. As human beings, we've built up such a high emotional resistance to being sold stuff. Because we're being sold every day. You're on your IG and there's pop-up sponsored ads. You're on Facebook and there's sponsored ads. You're driving on the highway and there's a billboard. You just, you know, if you get to your emails and you've filled up with spam, somebody's always trying to sell you something. So as human beings, we've built up such an emotional resistance and a cognitive resistance to selling that the best way to sell is not to. The best way to sell is to understand the mechanics of selling, understand how it actually works, but then do it in a way that is just instinctive and intuitive for you. And the only way to do that is through practice.
The hardest thing to do is to enable people to see themselves as they are. Not as they hoped they were, not as they've been taught they are, but as they actually are. It's the single hardest thing to do, and I'll tell you why. Because we're all embedded in this construct of a thing called identity, right? And what people forget is identity by its very nature, one is man-made and two is exclusive. What that means is the minute I say I'm male, it means I'm not female. If I say I'm black, it means I'm not white. If I say I'm African, it means I'm not American. If I say I am, educated, it means I'm not illiterate. So all the little words we use to construct identity put us in a box. They don't free us, right? And it's something people, I think, don't think about because people today have assumed an identity for who they are. And it's all over, right? It's in the media, it's on social media, it's on TV, it's in the newspapers, it's in music videos. All you're being sold is an identity. This is what you should be based on where you come from and based on how you've been socialized. Very early on, my father taught me that I didn't have to be what society told me, right? That I could be different. Here's a great example. I'm short, therefore I can't model. Okay? I mean, it's not established that short people should model, but whether you should or whether you can are very different tests, right? And by the way, I approach every little thing in my life like that. Like all the shit I do, I go, I shouldn't, but it doesn't mean I can't. There's a big difference. So if you're telling me I shouldn't be in the room, you may be correct. It doesn't mean I don't have the capacity to be in the room. I want to force my way in. And I'm going to get to change your mind. So this thing about identity, I think is so powerful because in today's world where we're no longer demographics, we're a psychographic now. There's a kid living in Kuala Lumpur who's never been out of Kuala Lumpur who sounds like a kid in Brooklyn, New York because he's watching Jay-Z on YouTube. But he's completely immersed in that culture and he's never left his small little village, right? And that's exactly the point, is everything you've been taught you are, somebody taught you that's what you are. Now, you can keep that identity, but again, you can't get the progress. And so what a lot of people do is they hang on to it, right?